First contact with the forgotten captain, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the exploration vessel Terra's Promise, watching the endless expanse of stars through the reinforced viewport. The ship hummed quietly around her, a sound that had become as familiar as her own heartbeat during the past 18 months of deep space exploration. Earth's newest generation of explorers had been tasked with mapping the outer regions of the galaxy, far from the established trade routes and diplomatic channels that connected the major civilizations. Sarah was 34 years old, with short brown hair and steady green eyes that missed nothing. She had earned her position through years of careful service and an uncanny ability to solve problems that others found impossible. Her crew trusted her completely, and she had never given them reason to doubt that trust. Tonight, however, something felt different about the vast emptiness surrounding them. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb approached from behind, his footsteps echoing softly in the quiet corridor. He was Sarah's second in command, a tall man with graying temples and 20 years of experience in both military and civilian space operations. Marcus had served with distinction in the early days of human expansion, when every new world was a potential threat and every alien contact was a diplomatic minefield. "Captain, we're receiving something unusual on the long-range sensors," Marcus said, his voice carrying the kind of careful neutrality that meant he was worried about something. "Dr. Reeves thinks you should take a look at this personally." Sarah turned away from the viewport and followed Marcus to the bridge. The Terra's Promise was not a warship, but it was well equipped for the dangers of deep space exploration. The bridge was compact but efficient, with stations for navigation, communications, science, and tactical operations. Each position was manned by skilled officers who had volunteered for the long journey into unknown space. Dr. Alina Reeves looked up from her science station as Sarah approached. Alina was the ship's chief xenobiologist, a brilliant woman in her late 20s with black hair and intense dark eyes. She had studied at the finest universities on Earth and had personally examined more alien life forms than almost anyone in human space. Her expertise had proven invaluable during their exploration mission, but today she looked puzzled and concerned. "Captain, I've been monitoring subspace communications for the past 6 hours," Alina said, her fingers dancing across her control panel. "Most of what we pick up out here is just background noise from distant civilizations, but this is different. It's a distress signal, but it's not using any of the standard galactic communication protocols." Sarah studied the data scrolling across Elena's screen. The signal was weak and intermittent, as if it were coming from very far away or from equipment that was barely functioning. The pattern was unlike anything in Earth's databases of known alien communication methods. "Can you decode it?" Sarah asked. Alina nodded slowly. "I've been working on it for hours. The encryption is sophisticated, but it's not designed to keep people out. It's more like it's trying to hide from someone specific. Watch this." She pressed a series of commands, and the bridge speakers crackled to life. The voice that emerged was unlike anything Sarah had ever heard. It was melodic and somehow sad, speaking in accented but clear English. The words came slowly, as if the speaker were carefully choosing each one. "To any ship of the human species who might hear this message, I am Viridian of the Kelthra. We have been searching for your people for many cycles, hoping to find those who might listen to our plea. The great powers of the galaxy have declared us enemies of all civilized life, but we have done no wrong. We seek only to heal and to help, as our ancestors did before us. If you receive this message, please know that we have waited in the dark." spaces between stars for someone who might understand our truth. We are dying, and you are our only hope." The bridge fell silent. Sarah looked around at her crew, seeing the same mixture of surprise and concern on every face. In the 3 years since humanity had joined the galactic community, they had encountered dozens of alien species, but none had ever made such a desperate appeal directly to them. "How long has this signal been transmitting?" Sarah asked. "Based on the signal decay patterns, I'd estimate it's been broadcasting for at least 6 months, Alina replied. "Maybe longer. The power source is definitely failing." Communications Officer James Park looked up from his station. James was young, perhaps 25, with quick hands and an intuitive understanding of alien technology that had impressed everyone on the crew. "Captain, I've been analyzing the signal's origin point. It's coming from a region that's marked as empty space on all the official star charts." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Empty space on galactic charts usually meant one of two things. Either the area was genuinely uninhabited, or someone with significant political power wanted it to appear that way. "Dr. Reeves, what do you know about the Kelthera?" Sarah asked. Elena shook her head. "Nothing at all. I've studied the records of every known species in the galaxy, and the Kelthera aren't mentioned anywhere. If they exist, they've been completely erased from the official databases." That was troubling news. The galactic community maintained extensive records of all known intelligent species, both for diplomatic purposes and to prevent accidental conflicts. For an entire species to be missing from those records suggested either a massive oversight or a deliberate cover-up. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "we're supposed to report any contact with unknown species to Earth Command immediately. Protocol is clear on this." Sarah nodded, but something about the desperation in Viridian's voice made her hesitate. The Kelthora had been broadcasting their plea for 6 months, waiting for someone to respond. If they were truly dying, as Viridian claimed, then delays could mean the difference between life and extinction for an entire species. "Plot a course for the signal's origin," Sarah ordered. "We'll investigate first and report our findings to Earth Command afterward." The Terra's Promise changed course and engaged its faster-than-light drive. The journey to the signal source took 14 hours, during which Sarah found herself thinking about the implications of what they had discovered. If the Kelthora were truly innocent, as Viridian claimed, then their persecution represented a massive injustice. But if they were genuinely dangerous, then humanity might be walking into a trap. When they dropped out of FTL near the coordinates, the main screen showed what appeared to be empty space. Sarah was about to order a more detailed scan when James spoke up from his communications station. "Captain, I'm detecting a ship. It's small and appears to be heavily damaged. They're hailing us." "Put them through," Sarah ordered. The main screen flickered and resolved into an image that took Sarah's breath away. The being looking back at her was roughly humanoid in shape, but clearly alien. Viridian stood about 7 feet tall, with pale silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. His features were elegant and angular, with large eyes that held depths of sadness Sarah had never seen in any living creature. He wore simple robes that might once have been white but were now stained and patched. "Captain Chen of the human vessel." "Terra's Promise," Viridian said, and Sarah realized he must have accessed their ship's identification systems. "I cannot express how grateful I am that you have answered our call. I am Viridian, last speaker of the Kelthera Council. May I come aboard your ship? What I must tell you is too important to risk on open channels." Sarah looked at Marcus, who, nodded grimly. You may come aboard. We'll meet you in docking bay too. 2 hours later, Sarah sat across from Viridian in the ship's main conference room. The alien's presence filled the space in a way that had nothing to do with his physical size. There was something ancient and wise about him, but also deeply wounded. Dr. Reeves and Marcus flanked Sarah, while Security Chief David Martinez stood watchfully near the door. Tell us about your people, Sarah said gently. Viridian's large eyes grew distant, as if he were looking across vast spans of time. The Kelthera are healers, Captain Chen. For 10,000 years, we have traveled the galaxy, helping damaged worlds recover from war, disease, and environmental catastrophe. Our biotechnology can restore dead soil, clean poisoned water, and heal the wounds that civilizations inflict upon their worlds. That sounds like a gift, Alina said. Why would anyone consider that a threat? Because healing worlds makes them independent, Viridian replied sadly. The great powers of the galaxy have built their wealth and influence on the dependence of smaller worlds. If a planet can heal itself, it does not need to buy expensive terraforming equipment. If a species can grow food in previously dead soil, it does not need to rely on controlled trade routes. Our very existence challenges the economic system. That keeps the powerful in control. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest. So they decided to eliminate you instead of learning from you. 50 years ago, the Galactic Coalition declared us a threat to galactic stability, Viridian continued. They spread lies about us, claiming that we were parasites who created dependency in the species we helped. They said we would drain the life from entire worlds, leaving them worse than before. None of this was true, but the lies were repeated so often that they became accepted fact. What really happened? Marcus asked. Viridian's expression grew even sadder. We were exiled from every world we had ever called home. Our colonies were destroyed, our people scattered. Those who tried to find new homes were hunted down and killed. Our technology was stolen and reverse-engineered, then sold by the same corporations that had demanded our exile. How many of you were left? Sarah asked quietly. Perhaps 50,000, scattered across the galaxy in small groups, hiding in the dark spaces between stars. We have been dying slowly for 50 years, not from disease or old age, but from despair. We were created to heal, Captain Chen. When we cannot fulfill our purpose, we fade away. Dr. Reeves leaned forward. Viridian, would you be willing to provide biological samples so we can verify your claims? I want to understand what your people can actually do. Viridian nodded without hesitation. Doctor, I will give you anything you need. We have nothing left to hide. Over the next several hours, Alina worked with Viridian to collect and analyze samples of Kelthera biotechnology. What she found amazed her. The Kelthera had developed living tools that could repair damage at the cellular level, organisms that could break down toxins and transform them into nutrients, and symbiotic bacteria that could restore fertility to dead soil within days. Captain, Alina said as she presented her findings, everything Viridian told us is true. This isn't parasitism. It's the opposite. The Kelthera biotechnology doesn't take anything from the host environment. It only gives. They're literally designed to heal. Sarah felt the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. So the Coalition destroyed an entire species to steal their technology and eliminate competition. It appears that way, Alina confirmed. This is probably the greatest injustice in galactic history. That evening, Sarah stood again on the observation deck, but this time she was not alone. Viridian had joined her, and together they watched the stars in comfortable silence. Finally, the alien spoke. "Captain Chen, I must ask you something important. What will your people do with the knowledge I have given you?" Sarah turned to face him. "We're going to help you, Viridian. Humanity has never been good at standing by while innocent people suffer. But the Coalition will not allow it," Viridian said. "They have too much invested in maintaining the lies about my people. If you help us, you will make enemies of the most powerful forces in the galaxy." Sarah smiled grimly. "Then we'll just have to be more powerful than they are." For the first time since coming aboard, Viridian's expression showed something other than sadness. Hope flickered in his ancient eyes. "Captain Chen," he said quietly, "perhaps the galaxy is about to change. Humanity's stand for justice. The first threat came exactly 18 hours after." Captain Sarah Chen transmitted her initial report to Earth Command. She was reviewing Dr. Reeves' analysis of Kelthra biotechnology when Communications Officer James Park's voice crackled over the intercom with barely controlled urgency. "Captain, to the bridge, immediately. We're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Coalition High Command." Sarah had been expecting this moment, but that didn't make it any less ominous. She made her way to the bridge, where she found her crew already at their stations. The main screen showed the imposing figure of Coalition Admiral Dexvar, a massive reptilian being whose species had held significant power in galactic politics for over 1,000 years. "Captain Chen," Admiral Vexvar's voice rumbled through the bridge speakers. "You have placed humanity in a very dangerous position. The Coalition has been monitoring your activities, and we are deeply concerned about your contact with the Kelthra terrorists." Sarah kept her expression neutral. "Admiral, we've found no evidence that the Kelthra are terrorists. In fact, our investigation suggests they've been wrongly persecuted." The Admiral's eyes narrowed, and his forked tongue flicked out briefly. "Captain, you are young and inexperienced in galactic affairs. The Kelthra are skilled manipulators who present themselves as victims while secretly plotting to undermine civilized society. Your species has been deceived. With respect, Admiral, I've seen the evidence myself. The Kelthra biotechnology is designed to heal, not harm. They're not parasites or terrorists. They're healers who have been systematically destroyed because their technology threatened certain economic interests." A dangerous silence fell over the transmission. When Admiral Vexvar spoke again, his voice was cold and threatening. "Captain Chen, I will say this once. Terminate all contact with the Kelthra immediately and surrender them to Coalition custody. If you refuse, humanity will face immediate suspension from all galactic trade agreements, diplomatic relations, and mutual defense pacts. Your species will be isolated from the galactic community." Sarah felt her crew's eyes on her, waiting for her response. She thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who had only recently gained access to galactic technology and trade. The Coalition's threat could set humanity back decades. But she also thought about Viridian and the 50,000 Kelthra scattered across the galaxy, dying slowly from despair. Admiral Sarah said calmly, "I understand your position, but I cannot surrender innocent beings to an unjust fate. I need time to consult with my superiors. You have 6 hours, Captain Chen. After that, we will assume humanity has chosen to side with terrorists over civilized society." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Marcus was the first to speak. "Sarah, they're not bluffing. The Coalition has the power to destroy Earth's place in the galactic community." "I know," Sarah replied. "But if we give in to this threat, we're endorsing the systematic genocide of an innocent species. Is that who we want to be? Before anyone could answer, James's communication board lit up again. Captain, we're receiving another transmission. This one is from Earth Command. The screen showed Admiral Rebecca Morrison, Sarah's ultimate superior, and one of the architects of humanity's galactic expansion program. Admiral Morrison was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and the kind of sharp intelligence that had made her legendary in military circles. Captain Chen, Admiral Morrison said without preamble, I've received your report about the Kelthia situation. I've also been contacted by no fewer than 7 coalition member species, all demanding that we terminate our contact with them immediately. Admiral, the evidence is clear. The Kelthia are innocent. They've been persecuted for technology that threatens established economic interests. I believe you, Captain, but I need you to understand the position this puts Earth in. We're still newcomers to the galactic community. If we make enemies of the wrong people too quickly, we could find ourselves in the same position as the Kelthia. Sarah felt her heart sink. Are you ordering me to surrender them? Admiral Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Captain, I'm ordering you to get me proof. Real, undeniable proof that can't be dismissed or explained away. If we're going to take on the established galactic order, we need to be absolutely certain we're on the right side. How much time do I have? The coalition is putting enormous pressure on Earth's government. You have perhaps 48 hours before the political situation becomes untenable. After the transmission ended, Sarah called an emergency meeting with her senior staff and Viridian. The alien looked even more frail than before, as if the weight of hope and despair were physically wearing him down. Viridian, Sarah said, we need concrete proof of the coalition's crimes against your people. Documentation, records, anything that can prove they've been systematically stealing your technology and spreading lies about you. Viridian nodded slowly. Captain, there is something I have not told you. Before our exile, my people maintained extensive records of our interactions with other species. We documented every world we healed, every species we helped, every technological innovation we shared. These records are hidden in a secure facility in the Kepler Nebula. Can you access them? Dr. Reeves asked. Not alone. The facility requires 3 Kelthia to activate, and I am the only one of my people within 50 light-years. But there is another way. The facility also responds to genetic signatures from species that have been directly helped by Kelthia biotechnology. If we can find descendants of those species, they might be able to help us access the records. Sarah studied the star charts that Viridian provided. The Kepler Nebula was in coalition space, heavily patrolled and dangerous to approach, but she also noticed something interesting. This system here, she said, pointing to a star near the nebula, that's the Thylos system. According to our records, the Thylos are one of the few species that have remained neutral in most galactic conflicts. Yes, Viridian said, his eyes lighting up with memory. The Thylos we healed their homeworld 200 years ago when a plague had killed most of their plant life. They were grateful, but when the persecution began, they were forced to publicly distance themselves from us. Maybe they remember, Sarah said. Maybe they're ready to help. The journey to the Thylos system took 36 hours, during which Sarah found herself constantly checking the communication logs for more threats from the coalition. They came regularly, each one more severe than the last. By the time they reached Thylos space, the coalition had mobilized a fleet of 12 warships and was demanding immediate action from Earth Command. The Thylos homeworld was a beautiful blue-green planet covered in vast forests and crystal-clear oceans. Sarah had read about the ecological disaster that had nearly destroyed this world 2 centuries ago. But looking at it now, she would never have guessed it had ever been anything but paradise. The Thylos themselves were a tall, elegant species with pale green skin and large eyes that seemed to hold depths of ancient wisdom. Prime Minister Kethnola met them at the capital city spaceport, accompanied by a small delegation of government officials. Captain Chen, Prime Minister Kethnola said in perfect English, "We received your transmission. We have been expecting this day for many years." "You know about the Kelthera persecution?" Sarah asked. "We know everything," the Prime Minister replied sadly. "We have always known the truth about what happened to them, but we were too few and too weak to stand against the coalition alone." Prime Minister Kethnola led them to a vast archive beneath the capital city. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing the history of Thylos, including detailed records of the Kelthera intervention that had saved their world. "When the plague struck our world," the Prime Minister explained, 90% of our plant life died within 6 months. Our people were starving, our ecosystem was collapsing, and we had no solution. Then the Kelthera came. They asked for nothing in return, but they gave us everything. They healed our soil, restored our forests, and created new plant varieties that were immune to the plague. "What happened when the coalition demanded your support for the persecution?" Dr. Reeves asked. "We were told that if we continued to support the Kelthera, our world would be blockaded and we would be denied access to galactic trade. We were a small species, still recovering from near extinction. We had no choice but to publicly condemn them, even though we knew it was wrong." Viridian stepped forward. "Prime Minister, I do not blame your people for what you had to do. Survival sometimes requires difficult choices. But now we have a chance to make things right," the Prime Minister said. "Captain Chen, if you can, prove the coalition's crimes. Thylos will stand with you. And we know of other species who feel the same way." Using the genetic identification protocols that Viridian had provided, the Thylos were able to access the hidden Kelthera facility in the Kepler Nebula remotely. What they found was a treasure trove of evidence that painted a clear picture of 50 years of systematic persecution and theft. The records showed that the coalition had been stealing Kelthera biotechnology for decades, reverse engineering their innovations and selling them through front corporations. They had spread lies about Kelthera parasitism while secretly profiting from their healing technologies. Most damning of all, they had documents proving that the coalition leadership knew the Kelthera were innocent, but had decided to destroy them anyway to protect their economic interests. "This is it," Sarah said as she reviewed the evidence. "This is everything we need to expose them." But as they prepared to transmit the evidence to Earth Command, James detected massive energy signatures approaching through hyperspace. 12 coalition warships dropped out of FTL around the Thylos system, their weapons powered and ready. Admiral Vexvar's voice boomed across all communication channels. "Captain Chen, you have exceeded your authority and violated coalition. Space, surrender the Kelthera terrorists immediately, or we will take them by force." Sarah looked around the bridge at her crew. These were good people who had signed up for exploration, not war. She couldn't ask them to fight a hopeless battle against overwhelming odds. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "what are your orders?" Before Sarah could answer, her communication board lit up with incoming transmissions, not from Earth Command, but from dozens of other ships. The Thylos had sent out the evidence to every species they had contact with, and the response was immediate and overwhelming. The first to arrive were the Andromedans, a proud warrior species that had always prided themselves on honor and justice. Their battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, led by Admiral Kestar, whose voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Coalition vessels, this is Admiral Kestar of the Andromedan Defense Force. We have reviewed the evidence of your crimes against the Kalthora. Stand down immediately and prepare to face justice. They were followed by the Centauri Alliance, the Free Traders Confederation, and dozens of smaller species that had been quietly nursing their own grievances against coalition tyranny. Within hours, the Thylos system was filled with ships from across the galaxy, all united in their demand for justice. Admiral Vexfar found himself facing not just one human ship, but a coalition of species that represented nearly half the galaxy's population. His threatening voice was replaced by confused stammering as he tried to understand how the situation had changed so quickly. "This is impossible," he transmitted. "The evidence is fabricated. The Kelthra are dangerous terrorists who must be contained." Admiral Sarah said calmly, "The evidence speaks for itself. The galaxy has seen the truth about what you've done. It's over." The final blow came when Earth Command Admiral Morrison's voice echoed across the system. "Coalition vessels, this is Admiral Morrison of Earth Command. Based on the evidence provided by Captain Chen, Earth formally withdraws from the Coalition and recognizes the Kelthra as a sovereign species under our protection. Any hostile action against them will be considered an act of war against humanity." Over the following days, the Coalition's power structure crumbled as more species learnt the truth about the Kelthra persecution. The evidence was so overwhelming that even Coalition member species began to withdraw their support. Several high-ranking Coalition officials were arrested by their own governments, and the organization that had controlled galactic politics for centuries found itself facing dissolution. 6 months later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Terra's Promise, watching as construction crews worked to build the first new Kelthra colony in 50 years. Viridian joined her, but this time he was not alone. Hundreds of Kelthra had emerged from hiding across the galaxy, and their population was growing steadily as their despair was replaced by hope. "Captain Chen," Viridian said, "I cannot find words to express my gratitude. You have given my people back their future." Sarah smiled. "We just did what was right. Besides, the galaxy is better off with healers than with tyrants." "What will humanity do now?" Viridian asked. "You have made powerful enemies. We've also made powerful friends," Sarah replied. "The new Galactic Alliance is based on justice and cooperation, not fear and exploitation. It's going to be a very different galaxy from now on." As she spoke, a message from Earth Command appeared on her personal communicator. Humanity had been elected to lead the new Galactic Alliance, with Sarah herself nominated as the first human to serve as Supreme Commander of Alliance forces. "It looks like our work is just beginning," Sarah said, looking out at the stars with new determination. "But I think we're ready for whatever comes next." In the distance, the first Kelthra healing ships were already departing for worlds that needed their help. The galaxy's greatest healers were free once again, and humanity had proven that sometimes the newest voice in the room could be the most powerful force for change. The age of coalition tyranny was over. The age of hope had begun.